Hello everyone, I welcome you all to my YouTube channel CLASS12 POL. So today I am providing you the notes of Class 12 Political Science Chapter 7 Rise of Popular Movement, or this chapter is also known as New Social Movements in Indian Politics. So let's begin. Nature of Popular Movements. In the 1970s, diverse social groups like women, students, Dalits, and farmers came together under the banner of various social organizations to voice their demands. These assertions mark the rise of popular movement or new social movement in Indian politics. Chipko movement. In early 1973, men and women from a village of Uttarakhand were protesting against the practices of commercial logging that the government has permitted. The movement started in 2 or 3 villages of Uttarakhand when the forest department refused permission to the villagers to fell ash trees to make agricultural tools. The forest department allotted the same patch of land to a sports manufacturer for commercial use. This enraged the villagers and they protested against the move of the government. When the trees cutters tried to cut trees, people put their hands around the trees and refused to move. Struggle soon spread across many parts of Uttarakhand region. Larger issues of ecological and economic exploitation of the region were raised. Women's active participation in the Chipko ignition was a very novel aspect of the movement. Party-based movements. Popular movements may take the form of social movements or political movements, and there is often an overlap between the two. These movements did not participate in elections formally, and yet they retained connections with political parties, as many participants in these movements as individuals and as organizations were actively associated with parties. These links ensured a better representation of the demands of diverse social sections of a party politics. Non-party movements. These movements are based on the loss of faith in existing democratic institutions or electoral politics. Students and young political activists from various sections of the society were in the forefront in organizing the marginalized sections such as Dalits and Adivasi. They did not contest elections at the local or regional level, nor did they support any one political party. Dalit Panthers. Dr. Ambedkar's version of socio-economic change and his struggle for a dignified future for Dalits outside the Hindu caste-based social structure made him remains an iconic and inspirational figure in much of Dalit liberation writings. Origins. Dalit Panthers was a militant organization of Dalit youth to be formed in 1972 in Maharashtra. In the post-independence period, Dalits were mainly fighting against the perpetual caste-based inequality and maternal injustice that the Dalits faced in spite of constitutional guarantees of equality and justice. Effective implementation of reservation and other such policies of social justice was one of their prominent demands. Activities of Dalit Panthers mostly centered around fighting increasing inequalities in Dalits in various parts of the states. The government passed a comprehensive law in 1989 that provided the rigorous punishment for atrocities against Dalits. The larger ideological agenda of Dalit Panthers was to destroy the caste system and to build an organization of all oppressed sections like landless, poor, peasants, and urban industrial workers along with Dalits. The movement provided a platform for Dalit educated youth to use their creativity as a protest activity. In the post-emergency period, Dalit Panthers got involved in political compromises. It also underwent many splits which led to its decline. Organizations like the backward and minority communities employees federation took over this space. Bharatiya Kisan Union. The social discontent in Indian society since the 1970s was manifold. Agrarian struggle of the 1980s is one such example where butter-off farmers protested against the policies of the state. Growth. Bharatiya Kisan Union (BKU), an organization of farmers from western Uttar Pradesh, Haryana regions, was one of the leading organizations in the farmers' movement in the 1980s. The BKU demanded higher government floor prices, abolition of restrictions, guaranteed supplies of electricity, and the provision of a government pension to farmers. Characteristics. Activities conducted by the BKU to pressurize the state for accepting its demand, including rallies, demonstrations, sit-ins, and jail bharo courting agitations. The organization used traditional caste panchayats of these communities to bring them together over economic issues. Until the early years of 1990, the BKU distanced itself from political parties. It operated as an pressure group in politics with its strength of sheer numbers. The organization, along with the other farmers' organizations across states, did manage to get some of their economic demands accepted. Like BKU, other organizations of farmers were Shetkari Sangatana of Maharashtra and Rayota Sangha of Karnataka. Anti-Arak movement. Anti-Arak movement was a spontaneous mobilization of women demanding a ban on sale of alcohol in their neighborhoods. Origins. In the early 1990s, the women of Dabagutta in the Nellore district of Andhra Pradesh had enrolled in the adult literacy drive on a large scale. Women in Nellore came together in spontaneous local initiatives to protest against Iraq and forced closure of the wine shop. The news spread fast, and women of about 5,000 villages got inspired and met together in meetings, passed resolutions for imposing prohibition on and sent them to district collectors. Leakages. The slogan of anti-Iraq movement was simple: prohibitions on the sale of Iraq, but this simple demand touched upon larger social, economic, and political issues of the region that affected women's life. The movement openly discussed the issue of domestic violence like dowry, sexual violence, etc. Narmada Bachao Andolan. Sardar Sarovar Project. This project was an ambitious project launched in the Narmada Valley of central India in the early phase of 1980s. The project consisted of 30 big dams, 135 medium, and around 3,000 small dams to be constructed in the Narmada and its tributaries that flow across three states of Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat, and Maharashtra. Sardar Sarovar project is a multi-purpose mega-scale dam. Its advocates say that it would benefit huge area of Gujarat and the three states adjoining states in terms of availability of drinking water and water for irrigation, generation of electricity, and increasing in agricultural production. Issue of relocation and proper rehabilitation of the project affected people were first raised by local activist groups. Around 1988 to 1989, the issue crystallized under the banner of the NBA Narmada Bachao Andolan, a loose collective of local voluntary organizations. Debates and struggles. It demanded that there should be a cost-benefit analysis of the major development projects completed in the country so far. The movement argued that larger social cost of the development project must be calculated in such an analysis. The protest was shifted from its initial demand to rehabilitation to total opposition to the dam. A comprehensive national rehabilitation policy formed by the government in 2003 can be seen as an achievement of the movements like the NBA. Lessons from popular movements. Popular movements help us to understand better the nature of democratic politics. These movements came up to rectify some problems in the functioning of party politics and should be seen as integral part of our democratic politics. They represented new social groups whose economic and social grievances were not readdressed in the realms of electoral politics. These movements ensured effective representation of diverse groups and their demands. These reduced the possibility of deep social conflict and the affection of these groups from democracy. Critics of these movements often argue that collective actions like strike, sit-ins, and rallies disrupt the function of the government, delays decision-making, and destabilize the routines of democracy. The relationship between popular movement and political parties has grown weaker over the years, creating a vacuum in politics. The movement for right to information. The movement for right to information (RTI) started in 1990 when a mass-based organization called the Mazdoor Kisan Shakti Sangathan in Rajasthan took the initiative in demanding reports of famine relief work and accounts of laborers. In 1994 and 1996, MKS's organization Jan Swasis or public hearing where the administration was asked to explain its stand in public. In 1996, for People's Right to Information in Delhi to raise RTI to the status of a national campaign. In 2002, a weak Freedom of Information Act was legislated but never came into force. In 2004, RTI bill was tabled and received presidential assent in June 2005. So thank you, and if you like our video, subscribe to our channel and don't forget to share it with your friends.